Hey, friends, welcome to the Private Practice Leadership Podcast run by your true self, Valerie Ling. I am a clinical psychologist and I lead a practice of psychologists. There are about 11 to 12 practitioners and up to 6 to 8 support staff. And our very happy news is that we actually won this month or this year, last month, but for the year, Australian Small Business Champion Award for Psychology Services, which was such a treat. And I wanted to come with you today to share with you one of the most painful lessons I have learned in leading my business, which I only really discovered after a lot of things went wrong when I was trying to lead people. And that is to really understand the number of generations that you have in your business. I put a poll in my Facebook group. You can look it up. If you are a private practice business owner, please look up our group, Private Practice Leadership Support, and ask for a join because we have regular hangouts and lots of support spaces for one another. But I did put a poll and I asked, so how many generations do you actually have in your business? And some were actually quite surprised that when they actually thought about it, some have had actually up to 4 generations in their business. Now, the sad story for me of why I had to learn this the hard way was that I was leading an early career team. Most of the time in our business, when we first started, we had early career psychologists coming in. And because of the training pathways here in Australia, they can come from different ages and stages. Some people transfer into training to be a psychologist after another career. Some people go straight through university. And even then, you've got different ages and stages in the training pathways. Some people have done more than one master's program to get to be a psychologist, and some have gone straight from an undergraduate degree to supervised practice, et cetera, et cetera. And I suppose I tended to have assumed that psychologists just saw the world the same way I did in terms of how you determine what is considered to be collegial, what it means to be working together in a workspace, how to speak to one another, and even, what actually shames us, right? So if you're a health professional, you've usually taken quite a long time to get to where you are. The training is a long time. And it really hurts you when you make a mistake. We do not like making a mistake. And so, leading and managing a health professional team, when you have to give feedback and you've got to talk about performance, can lead to all kinds of entanglements that if you're not aware that you've got different generations in your business and they're reacting or expecting a different way from you as you're mentoring them and providing them feedback. So, what are the different generations? Well, I am going to assume that most of us would not have anybody who's more than 75 years old in our business. And therefore, I'm going to start with the first generation, which is the baby boomers. Now, the baby boomers are born between 1946 and 1964. So they're 57 to 75. So you may have someone who is a practice manager or even a senior clinician who is, 57 or 60 years old. And usually if they're at that age, they're not early career. So they're in your business because they're performing some more senior roles, and you're assuming and giving them more responsibility, more agency, and more autonomy. And of course, with that comes more expectations on what they're going to do and deliver and how they're going to to you. So, some of the things we want to know about baby boomers is that the leadership style that they would use and respond to tend to be more of a directive leadership. So they're expecting you to give them more structured, more descriptive, more complete instructions and directives and leadership. And then you need to essentially leave them alone. Baby boomers really probably are not the sort of people that want to be micromanaged. In fact, they value being given the independence to do what they need to do because they've been around for a long time and they've worked hard at what they do, and they may have really come from the bottom of the ranks to get to where they are. Education may not have come quite as easily. They're very often late season, they've had families, and so they expect to be given the space to do their job well. But they also expect you to give them everything that they need to actually do the job. So their ideal leader is someone who thinks ahead, thinks in a more detailed way, and who really they can respect as an expert. In other words, you not only do what you say, but you also know your stuff. So, do you have a baby boomer or a level of staffing in your business that are baby boomers? Well, they're going to need you to know your stuff, demonstrate that you're giving them complete, adequate, well thought through directions and structured roles, and probably then you need to really just leave them alone. Then comes Generation X. Now they're probably in your business really as your middle managers. And if you're like me, I am a Gen X. So I'm totally speaking from my point of view when I say this is how I lead and this is how I want to be led. But they may be in your business really as your middle managers. They could be your practice managers, they could be your principals, they could be your supervisors. And so, as your middle management, they're probably interacting a little bit more than you with the other generations in your business. So, what do we know about Generation X's? The leadership style that they respond to is a leader who really coordinates, who's kind of in the mix, who is able to delegate and chunk down tasks and activities and give it out to people, and is seen as someone who coordinates plans, project managers really, really well. So you've got your eye on timelines, you deliver when you say you're going to deliver. You're realistic about what kinds of things that you put onto the plate of others. And they really need to have a leader who shows up and does what they say they're going to do, right? So you are part of the resourcing workflow. And they want to actually have participation. They probably want to be consulted. They want to have their views and their thoughts heard. And they're really looking for a leader whom they can respect as being a solid practitioner, someone who's probably a content expert, a knowledge expert, right? So they're really looking for, and I can relate to this, right? So I am of this generation. And when I think of my previous bosses, I wasn't really impressed with the absent leaders, the ones who would just give us things to do and they weren't in the mix. Like I couldn't see them rolling their sleeves and doing. And I really had a distaste for leaders who were frequently late delivering their stuff, who, just didn't seem to be showing up for me. So you need to think about that. Do you have Gen X in your business? Are you the only Gen X? Do you kind of have a group think? So in my business, I do have a situation where our middle management is this generation. Right. So we all get along really well, but we also see things and have expectations of the doing and the time flow and the quality and the coordination and the project timelines and the processes that are very similar to one another. And then comes Gen Y. Now, you probably have quite a few Gen Ys in your practice if you've been in business for the last 10 years. Now, Gen Ys really appreciate the guiding, mentoring, developing leader. Someone who takes an interest in what they're interested in. Someone who's going to give them supportive and compassionate and gentle feedback to help them to grow clinically and professionally in a way that they can feel proud about. They're really looking for a leader who supports them, who champions them, who takes the time and who is patient to work through some of the niggly things that they may be experiencing. And really, they value the voice of their peers in this. The more connected they feel to their peers, to that level in your business, the more supported and surrounded they feel. And they really want to have a leader who is part of that team. The team element, not so much the throwing balls and the coordinating projects and the processes of of the Gen X, but this is more, hey guys, we are growing together, we are learning together, spaces to dialogue, spaces to experiment, spaces to champion and encourage one another. And so Gen Ys in our business, sometimes, and this was my mistake and still is my mistake, as a Gen X, I really want a rather distant, aloof way of doing things. When I'm professionally, like when I'm in a formal role of supervising, then I'm supportive. But for the rest of the spaces, I will put myself in my room and just bunker down and get my job done. I don't really entertain or want to entertain a lot of conversation, but I have learned that the open door, the ability for our Gen Ys to feel like they can connect with us when they need help and ask questions is a really important and motivating space for them to be in. Then come our Zs. Now they're your more recent graduates. So if you've got Generation Z in your business, they would be really, really your early careers. They'd be so I would say Gen Y would be now maybe more your mentors, the respected um, uh, informal leaders in your business. And so the more that they feel connected to you, the more they feel safe and shepherded by you, the more they're going to feel like they can now give and pass that on and be in a mentoring space. Because why? They actually they appreciate that sort of interactive, intersupportive space. Now your Generation Z's, the newest generation probably in your business, because they are, sorry, I should have said Generation Y, born 1980 to 1994. They're 27 to 41 years old. Generation X is born 1965 to 1979, age 42 to 56. So the Generation Zs are born 1995 to 2009. So they're 12 to 26. So unless you have an 11-year-old in your practice, these are probably going to be your early careers, your the ones that you've more recently brought into your business. Now, they look for a leadership style that is essentially empowering. So if you think of all the other generations, the leader is in the mix, right? So you've got your Gen X who are want a leader that's directive. So give me the stuff and then leave me alone. You've got your Generation Y who are have you in the mix as well. Hey, stick around, guide me, mentor, dialogue. Give me support and encouragement. But your Generation Zs actually would prefer you to step out of that, the scrum. Is that the right word? Step out of it, boss lady. Leave us to empower and innovate and create and talk and think ourselves. We want you to come in as part of a collaborator. So if you're going to be leading us, we see you, and this will feel weird, but we actually see you as a peer. Like if we can trust you and respect you to be a peer, then you are the person that I want to follow. They are looking for an ideal leader who is a collaborator. They want to be doing things with us, side by side with us, feeling empowered, feeling like they are actually being given opportunities to do to be given privilege and opportunities beyond maybe what they thought. It's kind of an inspired space. Their learning style is often multimodal. They're into forums. They are the ones, and this is the one that actually really tripped me up because I hadn't realized how different or how far removed I was from Gen Z until my own kids came to the fore, right? So they take the opinions and the feedback of their peers first. And I used to feel like, oh, this is not objective, how disrespectful. But actually, this generation has grown up with social media and forums and comments and dialoguing through really short sound bites between one another. And their thinking gets sharper and shaped when they are in that process. And so, less didactic approach, less sort of you telling, more you being a part of the experience, a collaborator in the learning, taking feedback, asking for input, embracing that they have a different way of looking at it, that they've got a more updated way of looking at it. So, knowing the different generations in your business and actually really thinking, I find it really helpful when I'm looking at a particular situation and kind of going, why has this happened? It's pretty common sense. Why are we not doing it the same way? It's because we might actually have a different generational feel or flow or expectation or motivation going through. So, what about you? How many generations have you got in your business? In your different levels of leadership, which are the generations that are in there? If you've got a Gen Z, for example, who's a practice manager, they're going to really see the role of being a practice manager very differently. Where are they in the different levels? What sorts of spaces have you created for community that really feeds and speaks into the different generations? So we are trying hard. We're not perfect, but when we look at meeting, projects, innovations, tasks, social spaces, how does it actually meet the different generational needs and cues for community, for feedback, for encouragement, for feeling valued? I'm curious to know what you think. Let me know.